Hey, what is up, everybody? Sorry, it's a little late here on my end. So, anybody out there in the East Coast, I know it's almost close to midnight, but it's a Friday, so maybe some of y'all are still up, maybe not. But, what is a good, um, what's a good night without covering of that chapter? And I just so happened to look and I find he uploaded 7 hours ago. So, like always, been championing him from the beginning, not understanding why this guy doesn't have millions upon millions and millions and millions of subscribers. I know he never says it, like and subscribe, but I want to be that voice to him and say that. Like and subscribe to his channel. This dude is unbelievable, witty, funny, charismatic, all the words you could think of for somebody who's doing a true crime channel, and he is, to me, by far the best, in my opinion. So, without further ado, let's get to it. All right, and here we go.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video, to set the scene for you, well, the scene, it is rural Cowichi. Now, I already hear you barking, big dog. Witch cows are the worst type of witches and the worst type of cows. But neither cows nor witches can compare to what happened when a real estate agent was taking a couple on a tour of a house in that area. They were prospective buyers, the real estate agent believed. But they weren't there for the house. They were there for him, and now they had him alone in a house in rural Washington.
God.
So, yikes. Why? Well, sometimes business deals, when they go sour, they go real sour.
So if I ever have, if I meet a future girlfriend and she's a real estate agent, I would not mind whatsoever hiring a security guard to be there for her, because those crimes are on the rise of women being, the R word, or sexually assaulted, being killed for no good reason whatsoever. And the same goes for men, being beaten, robbed. I mean, it's like anything nowadays isn't safe. So I just want to throw my 2 cents in there.
And this has got it all. This is like your perfect kind of murder mystery for you here today, folks. So, without further ado, let's give it a go. Cowichi is a place. Now, it's kind of really all I have to say about it, to be honest. It's a place. It exists. I'm led to believe. It's like right smack dab in the middle of Washington state, not far from the city of Yakima. When I say there's nothing there, I say that a lot, and I really mean it. So unless you want me to keep talking without actually saying anything of value, which actually kind of describes Cowichi pretty well. Let's vroom vroom Audi 5000 or whatever other weird shit I come out with on that chapter to the city of Yakima. Only on that chapter will you hear strange turns of phrases and whatever other weird shit I come out with. Okay, I'll stop talking now. Instead, we go to nearby Yakima, wouldn't mind you. It's home to around 100,000 people, give or take, and agriculture is the name of the game around these parts. The vast majority of hops grown in America are grown in Yakima Valley.
Oh, wow.
So be grateful for that one, beer drinkers. The population in the area is, roughly, on the rise, or at least till most recently. Folks are hopping over for the hops, and I'm sure other shit too. And so with all these, new folk flocking to downtown Yakima, they need places to live and they need houses. And some of them may have bought a house or rented a house from Aspen Realty LLC, owned and operated by one Vern Holbrook. Vern was one of the best in the biz, a well-known figure in the local community. He could sell you anything. Sell me this pen, he would sell you the whole stationery. Even as he was getting on in years, he was still working 60 hours a week to make sure you got the right house for you. He showed no signs of slowing down, because that's how you die, or that's probably what he was thinking. I mean, it's not the fall that kills you, it's, the sudden stop. That's one way of looking at it. During the spring of 2013, Vern was 78 years of age, but he was still going strong as ever. It's the hops. Vern was a native of Idaho, growing up there, marrying, and driving oil trucks for a living. He ended up moving to Yakima in 1965 with his first wife Cheryl and his son Terry. And it was there that he began following, his dream of being not a fake one, no, being a real estate agent. And he was good at it. He was a member of all the organizations, he knew the palms to shake, and the business was thriving. Gregarious, generous, a nice fella. Vern's first wife Cheryl would pass away in 2007, and he would marry again. A woman named Xingzhao from China. And in the early 2010s, he had one son, 2 stepsons, 12 grandchildren, and 8 great-grandchildren, all of which he loved and was devoted to. A surprisingly dedicated family man. I mean, that's when he was happiest, even though he was always, working his bollocks off. Even when his kids, would separate from their partners, he would still be there. For example, like one of his sons was married to a woman named Jill Taylor. They divorced, but he still, was helping Jill with his grandchildren, her children. He was still, getting her groceries, paying her rent. Once you were, part of the Holbrook clan, you were always part of the Holbrook clan. Like one of his favorite things to say was, a family that goes to the dump together stays together. I'm not sure why he said that. He was a big Seattle Mariners fan, and he enjoyed a bit of DL fishing, golfing, and gardening. But work was what he really loved, family and then work. He was getting on in years and had briefly toyed with the idea of selling the business to a young up-and-comer he had mentored, a guy named Dan Blizzard, but in the end he kept it, and he kept working. Every time he set, a retirement date, he would push it back, just one more year. Kind of kept going. In 2013, however, that decision would be made for him. On the 25th of May, a Saturday, Vern was up and at 'em bright and early that day. He had a house to show to some prospective buyers, and after he was due to meet his kids for lunch in Yakima. He was calling and texting his kids, texting away that morning. He said he'd be a little late for lunch as the prospective buyers, they hadn't shown up yet. And he eventually missed lunch, which his kids were, that's Dad, that's Vernon, that's Vern. He was a workaholic and he was probably, closing the deal or something. It was on that Saturday evening that his kids finally got a call. Just not from Vern. A call from the hospital. Like the worst fucking type of call you can get, you pick it up and your stomach just drops. Vern was in intensive care. At the house showing, someone had brutally and savagely beat the shite out of Vern and slit his throat from ear to ear. It wasn't looking good for poor old Vern. Something had happened at that house showing in Cowiche. A defenseless old man had been attacked and someone had tried to murder him. Probably thought they had been successful, but it seemed that he'd been found and emergency services called before that could happen. Police had arrived to that remote house in Cowiche shortly after 7:30 p.m. See, Vern had a showing that morning, and then his wife started to become worried when he stopped answering calls and never arrived back home as the day went on. A colleague was asked to go there and have a go that evening to the house, check everything's alright, and, well, they walked into that empty house, barren, no furniture, no noise, no nothing, except in the air, that smell, that unmistakable, tangy, irony smell of blood. You can feel it. Walking through the house, they found him sprawled out. The cops were called, and this is what they found. He was rushed to the hospital. Vern was in a bad state. He had been there for probably, if you can believe it, 8 hours, just lying on the floor.
8 hours? If his family was so concerned about him running a little bit late, they're used to, maybe an hour, 2 hours tops. But I would think after 4 or 5 hours, you're probably like, what the hell? What's going on? We need this isn't like him. 8 hours, that's a lot of time. And then that's weird.
In and out of consciousness, slowly bleeding out. While Vern was fighting for his life in the hospital, the investigation began. Who had done this? And were they the people Vern was showing the house to, that day? Had the prospective buyers instead been real bad lads? But even if they were, why? It's not like this was a robbery, and Vern was a really nice guy. Well, as far as clues at the scene, Vern's truck remained with all his items inside. That included wallet, with cash and cards, so robbery, wasn't the motive. His cell phone was missing though, so maybe whoever did this wanted to make sure Vern couldn't call for help. So does that mean then that they intentionally left him there to bleed out? Because if they were sure they killed him, why would they take his phone? Could they not stomach finishing him off? I don't know which is worse, finishing him off or just leaving him there, bleeding out on the floor in this remote house in the middle of nowhere. But what the police could do was try and determine from Vern's phone records who he had last been talking to, maybe who the people, he'd been showing the house to were. They didn't have his phone, but they didn't need his phone. They called his, his cell company, and they could get his call records from them. The investigators, they got a list, of all calls in and all calls out. The last call made was to 23-year-old Adriana Mendez, a mother of 3 kids, all under 8, with a criminal record. Nothing major, assault is bad enough, but nothing more serious, as in murder.
For me personally, when it comes down to children or the elderly, I have even more disdain towards those who commit those types of acts of harming, someone who's essentially defenseless. A child, of course, is defenseless, just like an elderly man would be defenseless. I just, when they get caught, I wish that they would get double the time and never be given the opportunity to see the light of day if they're traumatizing a poor child any way they could, or if they, beaten an old man so badly that he's on the brink of death that they would never see daylight again. I mean, that's wrong. That's fucked up. You can't do that.
Now, kids, we have a lot of fun on that chapter, but let's get serious here for a second. Your safety is no joke. I worry. I stay up all night. I cried myself to sleep last night, worrying about what was going on, what you were up to, and if you were being kept safe. My gears were grinding. I thought some nasty computer man might be clackety-clacking you. I said to the missus, honey, get the gun.
Sponsor.
But then she said to me, hey, why don't you just tell them to use what I use, and that's NordVPN.
Good for him. I'm glad that he got a sponsor. I know he was doing Hunt a Killer, and I think he has done NordVPN. Listen, NordVPN, if you guys want to continue to sponsor him, he is one of the best channels on YouTube, if not the best true crimes channel. His wit, humor, how to deliver a story, bar none, just top at the top. He may not have the millions that he needs, but trust me, he is well worth it. So good investment there, Nord. But I'm sorry, I'm going to have to fast forward through for my small little crowd that I keep on trying to build up. Let's see if it's... Okay.
Let's get back into it. She was living in Yakima, staying at the Sunshine Motel. Now, the Sunshine Motel has a bit of a bad reputation. It should be called the Sun Don't Shine Motel, really. Prostitution, as in sex trafficking, drug deals, all that sort of stuff went on there. The only room service you would get there would be a knuckle sandwich, followed by your own teeth salad, and then people stealing your shit for dessert.
We're detectives with the Yakima County Sheriff's Office. What is your full name?
Adriana Mendez.
Okay, and what is your address?
Sunshine Motel.
Sunshine Motel.
Yes, currently.
Your phone number came up on Vern's phone record.
The police met with Adriana Mendez after not too long. She said, yep, she had spoken with Vern that morning. She had wanted to sell her place, but one thing, after another. He was busy that morning. He would call her later. She certainly said, though, she had never left town that day at all, never left Yakima.
Have you ever been out to Cowiche? When's the last time you were there?
Oh, years back.
Did you drive out there on Saturday?
Yeah.
Did you call Vern to set up a viewing for a house?
No. The only time that I called Vern was on Friday.
So I bet you take your accusations and shove them up your fucking ass. But if she had a place to sell, why was she staying at the motel? A shitty motel. Something stinks like fish and it ain't the motel. The same phone records she talked about, calling Vern to sell, disproved what she said because the police could, she made this call next to this cell tower and this cell tower was in Cowiche. She had called Vern from Cowiche, maybe exactly, near the house where he was found almost murdered, saying, "Oh hey, I'm running late." Because that was what Vern had said, the prospective buyers were running late.
The evidence doesn't lie.
Eventually, Adriana paid. She told a different story. A different story that went a little something like this. Adriana had called Vern on the insistence of her boyfriend, Luis, and that herself, her 3 kids, and Luis had gone out to Cowiche. It had been a family day out. While the kids were in the car, Adriana and Luis went into the house with Vern, and wandering through the home, kicking the tires, pretending like they were interested in buying it, this happened. Luis then drove Adriana and the kids home, tossing Vern's cell phone on the way. So the meeting had been set up with Vern on the pretense that they were, home purchasers, and then they attempted to murder him. It was all right there. But they hadn't stolen anything, so what was the point in all of this? Like, why did they try to brutally murder a nice old man who never did nothing to nobody? Aide said she had no idea. She had never met Vernon before, but she did know some of his co-workers. It's not a terribly big town or anything like that. Like, she knew Daniel Blizzard, who had worked with Vern before, and he was now doing his own thing. Luis Gomez Monges was also brought in and questioned. He denied he'd done anything, though, and he would not corroborate Adriana's story. Me? What? Actually, he didn't speak English, so... Okay?
Why did you hurt the old man?
¿Y por qué hacerle mal al viejito?
Yo no golpeé a ni un viejito.
I didn't beat up any old man.
What happened to him?
Yo no lo conozco.
I don't know him.
I believe you don't know him, but you met him on Saturday.
Pero el sábado sí lo conoció.
Adriana has already told us the truth about what happened that day.
The police made 2 arrests, both Luis and Aide, both on attempted murder, all the while Vern was in the hospital hanging on for dear life. It seemed clear Luis had been hired, Adriana had just kind of been there, but so if they were the goons, then who was the goose?
It was a
Let's take a gander.
I bet you any money.
Give it a go. Who would want Vern Holbrook dead? Well, a few people mentioned Dan Blizzard.
Yep.
They said he had a grudge against Vern Holbrook, which went back years. In the autumn of '08, so we're talking about 4.5 years before Vern ended up in a hospital in intensive care, Vern had wanted to sell up shop. Sell Aspen Realty and chill, hang out with the fam, retire, play a bit of Fortnite, and so he sent out this email. He sent out this email in September of 2008, company-wide. Over the last several years, the rumor mill has been active regarding the subject of Vern selling Aspen. It is no longer a rumor. Vern would like to announce that he has sold Aspen Real Estate LLC to Daniel Blizzard and 2 of his brothers. So then, what happened if, 4.5 years later, Vern's name was still up top? Well, things started good. The process was ongoing, he was selling. Dan and his brothers, they made the first 2 payments for the company. Like, until it was, the deal was completely done, Vern would obviously stay and manage the changeover. Vern, as a family man, he was very happy to be selling to family men, the Blizzards. However, after the first 2 payments, they never made another one. They never continued buying the company. Early 2009, this was, as you can imagine, the economy wasn't in a great shape, but Vern was like, here, listen, boys, we signed the deal, you made the first 2 payments, where's the rest of the money? They didn't cancel the deal. In fact, Daniel Blizzard asked Vern Holbrook to take out a life insurance policy that he would pay for, so that in case, Vern getting on in years, if something happened to him, the company would still be solvent. Nice. He was the main man, after all, who did all the businesses, so if he were to, take a hike, Aspen, in name at least, would be able to survive. The Blizzards said, "We will pay for your policy." So the Blizzards were making payments on the policy, but they never paid Vern for the company. So Vern was thinking, well, if they can pay, the money for the policy, so that people will get paid, and presumably they will get paid, if I croak, that's what's going to happen. But they won't pay enough to kick me out. Maybe they're just going to wait. He was thinking what you're thinking, right? Maybe they're just going to wait for me to die, delay this deal long enough, and then they'll be able to get the company and take control. He cancelled the deal.
Good.
I'm a detective who's investigating the attack on Vern Holbrook.
I heard about that.
In January 2010, he wrote, "Daniel is no longer with Aspen Real Estate LLC." And Vern would ask Daniel many times to cancel the life insurance policy. The life insurance policy which was only there in case something happened to Vern before the deal was finalized. And many years later, something did happen to Vern. Done and done. And now it looked like Vern might be done. After Vern cancelled the deal, there was a big old rigmarole, letters, court accusations, the whole kit and caboodle, all the bullshit you would expect there to be.
He did a very elaborate, good job on screwing us over, so.
Okay, how did he screw you over?
Just lies, deceit. I have nothing bad against Vern at all. I mean, when I use these kinds of words, it's not like I have some kind of grudge or anything like that. A lot of people can be saying a lot of different things.
In the end, though, Vern remained where he was, and the life insurance policy was never cancelled.
I can't believe
Now, Adriana would never really mention Daniel if he was involved.
Why would he agree to have his protege open up a life insurance policy for him? Like, does that not seem kind of odd? Like, he's not a stupid guy by any means. And regardless if he has his best, intent behind opening up a life insurance policy, but that's something that I would never, ever do. That's kind of odd.
At all. But the people who worked at the Sunshine Motel would say her motel room was being paid for by a white guy who looked a lot like a Blizzard. Daniel Blizzard. CCTV backed that up. The police confronted Adriana with the fact they had proof that Daniel had been paying for her motel room. Well, hers, Luis's, and the kids. When this was revealed to Adriana, she had one more thing to say. Maybe she did know who wanted Vern Holbrook dead, and they had been offering $10,000 for it to be done.
Were you involved in a sexual relationship with Adriana?
No.
No?
No.
Not at all?
No.
You were just helping her out of the kindness of your heart?
I'm a good guy.
Good guys usually describe themselves that way, sure. Aren't I great?
Have you ever told anyone that you would pay $10,000 if they would kill Vern?
I don't have that kind of money.
You would afterwards? You would have $1.58 million.
Well, I don't have access to that kind of money.
But you would. After the deed was done,
What does
what
that
you would
have
need to
anything to do
do
with
is
it?
find
You
someone who
would.
would do it on credit.
No.
That would be the way
Hey,
to
man,
handle
on
it,
credit,
I
huh?
suppose.
I don't know how people would handle it.
Okay, so clearly this piece of shit had something to do with it, but the detective is saying or asking some stupid fucking questions. Like a hitman on credit. Yeah, let me go ahead and just pull this hit off for you, and I'll go ahead and just pay me when I'm done. All right, cool. Okay, so you'll have access to $1.5 million as soon as the transaction goes over, for the real estate company. Oh, well, I don't have that money because the transaction never followed through. Clearly this asshole did something, but the detective, yeah. Give him a grade, an F.
I can't speak to that.
A guy like you doesn't just end up at the Sunshine Motel paying someone's rent. And then all of a sudden that same someone, without any bad words from you, they just happen to go out and beat the out of the guy that you have a life insurance policy on.
I don't know anything
It's
about
time to
that.
come clean, Daniel. No one is going to buy that you were just a good-natured guy helping someone out. Your story's thin, Daniel.
Looks like you're trying to spin something on me. You're trying to put two and two of something together that's not going over very well.
2 and 2 equals 4 every time.
Of course it does. And it's not adding up on your end, so...
What does that?
You're probably about the only one who is going to think that.
Well, I have nothing to hide. So, I don't know what you're trying to pin on me.
So at this time, I'm going to tell you that you are under arrest for the attempted first-degree murder of Vern Holbrook.
See, when the police spoke to Daniel and brought him in, he wasn't afraid to shoot from the hip. Tell him what you really think. But hurt him? Here, come on. You must be joking. Take that shit outside. So now you had 2 hired killers and the brain behind it. Done and done. Case closed. After being on life support and in a coma for some time, Vern sadly passed away. He never recovered from the attack, and, well, it took everything out of him. Now the 3 who'd been charged with attempted murder were charged with murder. Full on. Well, actually, you can make that 4. See, Daniel, he had a little birdie in his ear, a little kind of like Grima Wormtongue character, full of malcontent. And if Vern felt betrayed by Daniel, he would have shit his pants at this betrayal. See, Daniel had a girlfriend who was none other than former daughter-in-law and mother of 3 of Vern's grandchildren, Jill Taylor, a woman Vern himself had helped support for some time. See, it turned out that after Jill and her husband split up and she had left the world of the Holbrooks, well, Jill Taylor had gotten suckered into the meth world. And this is where she met Adriana, even living together for a while. It was Jill herself who introduced Dan, new boyfriend, and Adriana, new best friend, and that's how they met, Luis. And it turned out Jill had been trying this for some time. Offing Vern. She'd tried everything before finally reaching out to Adriana and saying, here, listen, would you and your fella, just kill him. Her and Dan had, their eyes on the prize, the Lombardi trophy in that chapter, and that is, Dan was still paying for it. All these years later, and, well, they thought they could, cash in on that. Why Jill would be like this is insane. I mean, she'd been family to Vern. He'd taken care of her. Even after she left the family, he had still taken care of her, and in return, she wanted him dead. So that her and her new boyfriend could what? Try and do some life insurance scheme, or maybe they would have just tried to take control of Aspen business, although Daniel didn't work there anymore, and Jill was no longer part of the family. I think it was really just revenge as well, but why would Jill want to do it? Vern loved her, he took care of her all the... Sociopaths, I guess, don't think like you, or I hope. I guess they don't need reasons beyond, I want it, and I'll do whatever I want to get it.
Is it okay if we...
That is fucking weird. This has one of the craziest spins on it.
talk about this?
Well, I would rather have a lawyer.
Okay,
it's because it's such a delicate situation and I need a professional.
I understand.
I'm not trying to not,
I don't take that personally. I understand that. I do need to let you know that you are under arrest.
Unfortunately, though, for the family, the state had to pick and choose who to go after, and gave both Jill and Adriana pardons in exchange for testifying against Dan and Luis, the big dogs.
Taylor had fallen into severe debt with Holbrook after borrowing money on multiple occasions. Taylor, who was also Holbrook's ex-daughter-in-law, says she was approached several years ago by Blizzard while they were dating, claiming he asked her to poison Holbrook. Taylor says she refused to commit the act and dispose of the poison.
Our judicial system is so fucked up, man. If it wasn't for her planting that little seed, the guy would have died of natural causes, old age, something, but not something so horrific to where, the poor man was on life support. My God, that is just... I can't believe she got immunity. I can't believe it. Bitch.
Which would have been poured into a drink. However, Mazzone did not believe Taylor's story added up.
Regardless of what you did with it, since you love this man so much, did you go to him and say, hey man, Somebody gave me poison to poison you.
No.
No, so the compassion was gone by that time.
The case against the two women wasn't terribly strong anyway, so they were both let out after time served. They both had done like about approximately a year in jail each. Jill would in fact say later that she had been, manipulated by Daniel. He had turned her against this guy who kind of looked after her, who had been family, who had been a father figure to her. He had turned her, it must have been a hell of a lot of manipulating. Drugs, kids. Not even once. Wow.
This would be the last house that Vern Holbrook would ever show to any prospective buyer.
Jurors listened in as both the defense and prosecution presented the outline of their case in the Vern Holbrook homicide. One of the suspects, Daniel Blizzard, is accused of the real estate broker's death. According to investigators, Blizzard and 3 other suspects, Jill Taylor, Adriana Mendez, and Luis Gomez Monges, all plotted the attack.
I can tell you right here, right now, that you will not hear of a single shred of forensic evidence of any kind linking this man or anybody else to that point.
It was a very circumstantial case, especially against Daniel Blizzard. It was really a he said, she said case.
Monges' attorney believes there is not enough proof of evidences or testimony that can pin the murder on Monges.
You're going to realize that there is not proof beyond reasonable doubt. There's not proof that my client did these terrible things to Mr. Holbrook.
Daniel and Luis were both tried separately. Both were found guilty of the first-degree murder of Vern Holbrook, and both were sentenced to over 30 years in prison.
Good.
And so ends the story of Vern Holbrook and the revenge plot for, revenge, I guess. It's a sad story, ultimately twisting family against family and long-simmering hatred erupting into pretty gruesome violence, costing a nice old man his life. Well, Dan Blizzard sure as shit is called, I kind of hate that that just came out of my mouth. Just end the friggin' video. Let's just end it here. Thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate if you're listening to me talk right now, you're at the end of the video. Congratulations. But really, it means a lot that you did so, and are here. So yeah, as always, check out Twitter, check out Instagram, check out Patreon for early access videos and a whole playlist of exclusive videos. And what else should I mention? That covers it. I'll see you in a couple of days in the next video, so I look forward to that. But until then, as always, please take care of each other, please take care of yourselves, because I love you. Mike out.
That is crazy. If it wasn't for the former daughter-in-law planting that little seed in somebody's mind, like, hey, let's go after him. Hey, the older man must have been out of his mind, though, too. I mean, to agree for life insurance to be taken out on him by his protege and not family. I mean, he had to have wealth, given that, in this small community, if you were buying a house or renting a house, it was most likely through his company. So he has money. And you would think that the other life insurance policies are going to cover his family. But how does one convince the other to take out the life insurance policy as a means of payment for the buyout of the company, knowing the only way he's going to get that money is if something bad happens to Vern Holbrook? This is weird beyond belief. I don't know, man. Well, as always, you guys go give him a like. Go show him some love. Subscribe to his channel. Give him a tip. Do whatever you can. Let's continue on, getting him bigger and bigger. Because that's all I want to see. I hope you guys enjoyed this reaction. If you're up to it, feel free to subscribe and like mine as well. If not, no worries. I just absolutely appreciate that you dropped on by. So, thank you so much. Until next time, this way, over here. Camera's over here. Peace.